The celestial spire hung in the sky above the dead planet like a broken crown once. It had been beautiful with towers of crystal and gardens that floated on clouds of pure light. Now half the palace lay in ruins and the gardens were nothing but ash. The war had taken everything from this place. Katie Miller stood in the grand hallway with a mop in her hands and stared at the destruction around her. She was 23 years old and had come from a small town in Montana where nothing exciting ever happened. When the Galactic Relief Organization posted jobs for humans to help rebuild alien worlds, she had signed up without thinking twice. Adventure among the stars sounded better than cleaning motels back home, but now that she was here, the reality felt heavy. The aliens she was supposed to help did not want help. They barely looked at her when she walked past. Katie pushed her mop across marble floors that had once reflected starlight. Now they were dull and cracked. She hummed a tune from home. To keep herself company, the other human workers had warned her about the East Wing. That was where Prince Kale lived, and nobody goes there anymore. One of them had said he does not speak to anyone. He sits in that throne room and stares at nothing. Katie had asked why, and the worker had looked sad. His bonded one vanished in the final battle without her. He is like a man who lost half his soul. Katie did not fully understand what bonded meant in Vel culture, but she understood loss. Everyone who survived the war understood. She finished mopping the main corridor and decided to explore the relief station. Manager had told her to avoid certain areas, but Katie had never been good at following rules that did not make sense. She wheeled her cleaning cart down a hallway lined with broken statues. Each one showed warriors in elegant armor. The Vel people looked almost like elves from old Earth's story stall, and graceful with pointed ears and silver eyes that seemed to glow at the end of the hall. She found a massive archway that opened onto a courtyard. Katie gasped when she saw what lay there. A dragonin. Actual living, breathing dragon. It was enormous, with scales that should have been brilliant blue and silver, but instead looked gray and lifeless. Creature lay curled in the center of the courtyard, completely. Still's eyes were closed, and its chest barely moved. Katie set down her mop and walked closer. She had read about Vel dragons in the information packets. They were called star dragons. They bonded with Vel warriors through psychic links. This one must belong to someone important. "Hello there, Katie," said softly, though. Dragon did not respond. Its breathing remained shallow and weak. Katie felt a strange sadness looking at this magnificent being reduced to barely living. She reached out slowly and touched one of the massive scales. It felt cold, like stone. A voice spoke behind her, making him Katie. Jump, that is, Starweaver. Katie spun around and saw a Velman standing in the shadows of the archway. Was tall, even for his people, with silver hair that fell past his shoulders. He wore robes that had once been white, but were now gray with dust. His eyes were the most striking thing about him. They were silver, like all Vel, but they looked empty. Dead inside. "You must be Prince Kale," Katie said. The prince did not answer. He simply looked at her, then at the dragon, then back at her. His expression never changed. Katie felt uncomfortable in the silence. She always talked too much when she was nervous, so this is your dragon, Katie? Said he is magnificent. Still no response. The prince just stared. Katie shifted her weight from foot to foot back. Home, when things got awkward, she would crack a joke. Her friends always said her sense of humor was terrible, but at least it broke tension. So Katie took a breath and said the first thing that came to mind: "Why do aliens not eat clowns?" She paused, but the prince showed no reaction. "Because they taste funny." Katie smiled, hoping for any response. The prince blinked once for just a moment. Something flickered in those dead silver eyes. Then it was gone, and he turned away without a word. He walked back through the archway and disappeared into the shadows. Katie stood there feeling foolish. "Well, that went great," she muttered to herself. She looked back at Starworth. Dragon had not moved, but Katie could have sworn one of its eyes had opened just a crack over the next few days. Katie learned more about the prince and his missing bonded. Her name had been Lyra Nightwhisper, and she had been the greatest warrior of the Vel people. She and Prince Kale had fought together with Starweaver, carrying them both into battle. They had been unstoppable. Then came the final battle against the swarm the mechanical aliens had overwhelmed. The Vel defenses. Lyra had led a desperate charge into the heart of the enemy fleets. Never came back. The Vel assumed she died, but her body was never found without. Her, the prince, had lost his will to fight the dragon, had lost its fire, the whole Vel. Civilization seemed to be dying slowly. Katie could not stop thinking about it. She had seen sad things before, but this felt different. These people had given up hope entirely that night. Katie lay in her small quarters aboard the relief station and made a decision. She could not bring back the dead. She could not undo the war, but maybe she could do something small. Maybe she could remind one grieving prince that life still had moments worth living. For then, if those moments were tiny, even if they were as small as a bad joke that made someone almost smile. The next morning, Katie went back to the East Wing. She brought her cleaning supplies and her worst jokes. When she found the prince sitting alone in his meditation chamber, she did not ask permission. She just walked in and started dusting. Then she told him another joke. "Do you call a Space Catan astronaut?" The prince did not laugh. He did not even look at her, but Katie noticed something. His shoulders had relaxed just slightly. It was a start. Katie smiled to herself and kept cleaning. She would come back tomorrow and the day after that, tanned every day until she saw that flicker in his eyes turn into something more. Because if Montana had taught her anything, it was that stubborn hope could outlast almost anything, even Griefhaven, Warvan, the endless silence of a prince who had forgotten how to smile. Katie made visiting the prince part of her daily routine. Every morning, she would finish her regular cleaning duties and then head to the East Wing. She always brought new jokes. Most of them were terrible. "What do you call an alien with 3 eyes, Anne?" Aliench would say these things while pretending to dust shelves or mop floors. The prince never responded with words, but Katie started noticing small changes on the 3rd day. His head turned slightly when she entered the room. The 5th day, she caught him looking at her instead of staring at nothing. On the 7th day, when she told a particularly bad pun about asteroids, she saw his eyebrow twitch. The other relief workers thought Katie was wasting her time. One woman named Megan Foster, who worked as a diplomatic liaison, pulled Katie aside. "You know he cannot hear you, right?" Megan said. "The Vel bond is psychic, and when it breaks like his did, they retreat inside themselves. He is probably not even aware you are there." Katie shrugged. "Maybe, but maybe not. Other way, it does not hurt to try." Megan looked at Katie like she was naive. "That is very human of you, Hope." Without reason, Katie grinned. "We are pretty good at that." While Katie continued her mission, strange things began happening. The relief station started picking up unusual signals. They came from the Obsidian Waste. That was the forbidden zone where the final battle had taken place. The entire region was poisoned by weapons that had been banned by every civilized species. Nothing could survive there, yet the signals kept coming. Megan brought the data to Prince Kale. During one of the official briefings, Katie happened to be cleaning nearby and overheard everything. Signals contained Vel battle codes. Megan explained codes that only high-ranking warriors would know. "We think it might be a beacon." The prince sat on his throne and said nothing. His expression remained blank. Megan waited for a response. When none came, she sighed and left. Katie watched the whole thing. Her mind raced. Battle codes that only warriors would know. A beacon from the place where Lyra disappeared. This could not be coincidence. That evening, Katie snuck into the communications bit. Was not hard. Security around the relief station was pretty relaxed. She found the computer terminals and started searching through the signal. Botanical Green was the tech specialist on duty. She looked up in surprise when Katie walked in. "I help you, Nicole?" asked Katie. Decided honesty was the best approach. "I want to see those signals." From the waste, the ones with the Vel codes. Nicole frowned. "That is classified information." "I know," Katie said, "but I think they might mean something important." "What?" "If someone is still alive out there." Nicole studied Katie for a long moment. Then she made a decision. She pulled up the data on her screen. "If anyone asks, I did not show you this." Shay leaned in and looked at the patterns. She could not read Vel language, but Nicole explained what they were seeing. "These codes repeat every 6 hours." Nicole said, "They are definitely artificial, definitely sent by someone who knows Vel military protocols. And look at this." She pointed to a specific sequence. "This code signature matches records from Princess Lyra Command Ship." Katie felt her heart beat faster, so it could Nicole held up a hand. Could buyer. It could be automated systems still running, or it could be Swarm trying to lure us into a trap. The wastes are lethal. Nobody has survived there since the war ended. Kati refused to give up, but what if she is alive? If she has been waiting all this time for rescue, we have to at least check. Nako looked conflicted. I agree with you, but the council will never approve an expedition based on this. They think it is too dangerous, then we make them approve it, Katie said. With determination, the next day Katie did something bold. She requested an audience with the Galactic Council. The request was denied. She requested again, denied. Again, the third try, she just walked into the council chamber during a session. Security tried to stop her, but Katie was quick. She ran to the center of the room and started talking before they could drag her away. No, you think the signals from the wastes mean nothing, Katie said loudly. But what if you are wrong? What if Princess Lyra is out there? What if she has been surviving in that hell, waiting for someone to care enough to look? The council members looked annoyed. Vel counselor spoke human. This matter does not concern youth. Wastes killed millions. We cannot risk more lives. On false hope, Katie felt anger rise in her chest. False hope is better than no hope at all. Black. On Earth we have a saying, no soldier left behind. It means we do not give up on our people just because rescuing them is hard. The council chamber went quiet. Another counselor spoke. Your sentiment is admirable, but naive. The probability of survival in the wastes is 0. How do you know, Katie? Challenge. Have you checked? Have you sent anyone to look, or did you just decide it was easier to assume everyone was dead before? The council could respond. A voice echoed through the chamber. She is right. Everyone turned. Prince Kalel stood in the doorway. It was the first time he had attended a council meeting in months. He walked slowly into the room. His silver eyes were still sad. But there was something new in them. Purpose. We abandoned the wastes because we were broken, the prince said. We told ourselves nothing could survive there because believing that was easier than hoping, but this human is correct. We owe it to those who fought to at least search. Katie stared at the prince in shock. He had actually spoken in front of others. Megan Foster stood up from where she sat in the observer section. I've been analyzing the signals, she said. I believe they are genuine. I support an expedition. Nicole Green stood as well. I will volunteer to go. The tech equipment needed for such a mission is complex, but I can handle it more. Humans began standing. A Marine captain named Lisa Bennett stepped forward. My squad will provide security. We do not abandon our allies. The Vel counselors looked at each other. The lead counselor finally nodded. Very well. Aeon expedition will be authorized, but it will be dangerous. All volunteers understand they may not return. Katie felt a surge of hope. She had done Itchy had convinced them. Prince Kale turned to look at Katie. You will come with Yuge. Sadit was not a question. Katie blinked in surprise. Me. Am just a janitor. The prince almost smiled. It was the smallest movement of his lips, but Katie saw it too. Are the one who reminded me that hope exists. You will see this through to the end. That night Katie could not sleep. She was going on an actual mission into one of the most dangerous places in the galaxy to search for a missing princess. It sounded like something from the adventure stories she used to read. She got up and walked to the courtyard where Starweaver lay. The dragon was still motionless, but when Katie approached, she noticed something different. The scales looked slightly less gray, and when she touched them, they felt warm, not cold, like stone. Any more warm, like living flesh. You can feel it too, Katie whispered. Your master's waking up, and maybe somewhere out there your other rider is waiting. Starweaver opened one massive eye. Right. Looked directly at Katie. Then the dragon made a sound, a low rumble that might have been acknowledgement. Katie smiled. Things were changing. Hope was returning to this broken place. And it all started with a few terrible jokes and one stubborn human who refused to accept that caring was pointless. Tomorrow they would leave for the waste. Tomorrow the real adventure would begin. The expedition team gathered at dawn in the launch bay. Prince Kale stood at the front, wearing armor for the first time since the war ended. It was silver and blue with symbols that glowed faintly. Katie wore a standard relief worker uniform that had been modified with protective plating. She felt out of place among the warriors and specialists. Captain Lisa Bennett checked her weapons for the third time. She was a tough woman with short dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. Her Marine squad stood ready behind her. All of them looked like they had seen combat before. Cole Green adjusted the scanning equipment strapped to her back. That tech gear was heavy, but necessary. They would need it to track the signals once they entered the waste Megan. Foster went over the mission briefing one final time. The obsidian wastes cover roughly 2,000 square miles, she explained. The region is saturated with radiation, and exotic particles from banned weapons or suits will protect you for approximately 6 hours. After that, the exposure becomes lethal. No pressure, Katie muttered. Lisa Bennett smirked. First time in a death zone, Katie nodded. The captain clapped her on the shoulder stick. Close to the group and you will be fine. Probably before they could board the transport ship, something incredible happened. A roar echoed through the launch. By everyone turned to see Starweaver entering through the massive doors. The dragon had risen. Scales were no longer completely gray. Hints of blue and silver shimmered across its body. The creature was still weak, but it moved with purpose. Prince Kale walked to the dragon and placed his hand on its neck. For a moment they stood in silence, psychic connection passing between them. Then Kale looked back at the teamster. Weaver will carry us. The dragon is still bonded to Lyra. If she lives, he will sense her when we get close. Katie felt a chill run down her spine. This was really happening. They were going to ride a dragon into hell itself. The team climbed onto Starweaver using special harnesses. Katie found herself seated behind Nicole and in front of one of the Marines. The dragon was even more massive up close. Its back was wide enough to carry a dozen people. Prince Kale sat at the front near the base of the neck. He spoke a word in the Vel language. A Starvear spread wings that seemed to stretch forever. Then with one powerful thrust, they were airborne. The flight to the wastes took 2 hours. Katie watched the landscape change below the mat. First there were still signs of civilization, ruined cities and broken roads. Then even those disappeared. The ground became black glass, smooth and reflective like a dark mirror. That is where the plasma bombs fell, Nicole explained. They melted everything, rack, metal, bone, all of it fused into glass. Katie felt sick looking at it. How many people died down there? Millions, Nicole said quietly. Maybe more. We will never know the exact number. As they flew deeper into the wastes, the sky itself began to change. Colors swirled overhead, purples and greens that had no business being in atmosphere. Reality warping effects. Lisa Bennett said the banned weapons tore holes in space. What? You are seeing our dimensional bleeds. Try not to look at them too long. It messes with your head. Katie tried to focus on the horizon instead, but even that looked wrong. The air shimmered and twisted. Shapes that might have been buildings or creatures flickered in and out of existence. Those real, Katie asked. Psychic echoes, Prince Kale answered. Dim prints of the dead burned into reality itself. The wastes remember the war. They show it over and over again. Katie shuddered. This place was worse than any nightmare. After another hour of flying, Nicole equipment started beeping. I am picking up the signal, Shay announced. It is coming from underground coordinates. Lockett. Starweaver banked left and descended. They landed near a cliff face that rose from the black glass ground. The cliff had a cave entrance partially hidden by fallen rocks. This is it, Nicole said. The beacon is coming from inside. The team dismounted and activated their protective suits. Katie felt the hum of the shield generator on her belt. Lisa Bennett took point with her Marines. They entered the cave with weapons ready. The interior was dark, their lights cut through shadow-revealing walls covered in strange growths. Are those plants? Katie asked. Fungus, Nicole replied. Mutated by radiation. Do not touch anything. They walked deeper. Cave sloped downward into a tunnel that had clearly been made artificially. Vel construction prints, Kale observed. This was a military installation. They followed the tunnel for what felt like miles. Katie lost track of time in the darkness. Then they saw a light ahead, not the harsh white of their lamps, but soft blue glow. The tunnel opened into a massive underground chamber. In the center stood a bunker made of crystallit, pulsed with energy, the source of the beacon. And standing guard at the entrance was a figure in damaged armor. Shay was tall and elegant. Even in her battered state, silver hair fell in tangled waves. Her eyes were fierce and bright. She held a weapon pointed at the team. Lyra, Prince, Kale whispered. The woman lowered her weapon slowly. Kale, her voice was rough from disuse. You came. The prince ran to her. They met in an embrace that looked painful and desperate. Katie felt tears in her eyes watching them. Behind Lyra, the bunker doors opened. Inside, Katie could see stasis pods. 12 of them each contained a child. Vel, children with silver hair and peaceful faces. I could not leave them, Lyra said. They were the last survivors of the southern colonies. I found them after the final battle. brought them here built. The shields kept them safe. But I am Phalanxity could see it. Now Lyra was not just tired, she was dying. Her skin had a gray tinge. Her movements were slow. I have been using my life force to power the shields, Lyra explained. Without them, the wastes would kill the children I knew. I would die eventually, but I hoped someone would find the beacon. First, Nicole immediately started scanning the bunker. Systems I can reroute power from our ship, she said. We can stabilize the shields without you feeding them. Energy. Lisa Bennett was already organizing the evacuation. My team will prep the pods for transport. We are getting everyone out of here, Katie approached. Lyra, carefully, you saved them. Katie Sadalov, you are a hero. Lyra smiled weakly. Am a warrior who refused to let the war take everything. She looked at Katie with curiosity. You are human, yes. Katie said, my name is Katie. Am the one who convinced them to search for you. Lyra laughed. It was a harsh sound, but genuine. A human saved me. How strange, how wonderful. Prince Kale held Lyra close. We are together again, he said. The bond con. You feel it? Lyra nodded. I never lost it, heaven. When I thought I would die alone, I felt you far away grieving. I am sorry I could not return sooner. Starweaver suddenly roared outside the bunker. The sound was alarm. Lisa Bennett grabbed her weapon. Contact, one of the Marines shouted. The scanners are lighting up. Something big is coming. Nicole checked her equipment and went pale. No, she whispered. No. What is it? Katie demanded. The swarm. Nicole said they are not dead. They have been hiding beneath the waste sand. Our presence just woke them up through us. The tunnel entrance. Katie could see movement, metal shapes crawling across the black glass. Thousands of them. The nightmare was not over. It was just beginning. The swarm emerged from the ground like a wave of metal nightmares. They were machines built for killing each. One had multiple legs and weapons that glowed with deadly energy. Their eyes were red sensors that locked onto the team. Immediately. How many? Lisa Bennett shouted to many. One of the Marines answered. Hundreds, maybe thousands. We need to leave now. But the children were still in stasis pods. Moving them would take time. Time they did not have. Prince Kale made a decision. He drew a sword that hummed with psychic energy. Lyra, can you fight? Lyra stood despite her weaknesses. She pulled a blade from the bunker while always Kati watched in awe as the two Vel warriors moved together. They ran toward the tunnel entrance behind them. Starweaver crashed through the cave ceiling. Rock and debris fell everywhere. The dragon roared and unleashed a stream of blue fire. The flames hit the first wave of swarm machines. Metal melted and twisted, but more kept coming. Lisa Bennett organized the Marines into defensive positions. Katie Captain shouted, help Nicole with the pods. We will hold them off. Katie ran to Nicole, who was frantically working on the stasis systems. I need to disconnect these carefully. Nicole said, I rush it. The children could die. How long? Katie asked. 10 minutes. Minimum. Katie looked back at the battle the Marines were firing. Steadily, their weapons cut down. Swarm units, but for every one destroyed, 2 more appeared. Prince Kale and Lyra fought like dancers. Their movements were perfectly synchronized. They had fought together so many times before that they moved as one being. Starweaver provided cover from above. The dragon clawed and bit at machines that got too close, but Katie could see the dragon was still weak. Its attacks were slower than they should be. This was bad. They could not hold for 10 minutes. Not against this many. Katie mind race. There had to be a way to stop the swarm, or at least slow them down. She looked around the bunker. It was powered by a massive reactor, the same reactor that Lyra had been feeding with her life force. An idea formed, a crazy, dangerous idea. But crazy was kind of humanity. Specialty. Nicole Katie said, what would happen if we overloaded the reactor? Nicole looked up and shook it. Actate! Pressed. Would it be big enough to take out the swarm? Nicole understanding dawned on her face. The reactor is charged with exotic particles. If it detonated, it would create an electromagnetic pulse, Katie said, that would disable the machines. Nicole nodded. Slowly, yes, but it would also destroy the bunker, and anyone too close would be caught in the blast. We evacuate on Starweaver, Katie said. Set the reactor to overload. Get everyone out, then boom. No. Out. More swarm. Lisa Bennett had been listening. She ran over that. Could work, but the timing has to be perfect. We set it off too early, and we trap ourselves too late, and the swarm overruns us. Nicole started working on the reactor controls. I Can set a timer, give us 5 minutes to evacuate us, that enough time it has? Tbilisi said. She shouted to her Marines' new plan. We are setting a bomb, hold the line for 5 more minutes, then we run the. Marines acknowledged and intensified their fire. Katie ran to tell Prince Kale, and LaRouche dodged falling rocks and melted metal. Swarm units spotted her and charged. Katie Froche had no weapon, no training. The machine raised a blade arm to strike. Then Lyra was there. She moved faster than Katie could follow her. Sword cut the machine in half. Katie gasped. Thanks, Lyra smiled. What is the plan, human? Katie explained quickly. Lyra looked impressed. Bold, reckless, very human-y like. Itchy and Prince Kale fought their way back toward the bunker. Star Weaver descended and positioned itself near the entrance. Nicole worked frantically on the reactor. The children's pods were loaded onto makeshift sleds. The Marines would drag them to the Dragon 3 minutes. Nicole called out. Katie helped secure the pods. Her hands shook, but she forced herself to stay focused. The swarm was getting closer. Some had made it past the defensive linear machine, burst into the bunker. It scanned the room. Its red eyes locked on Katie. Katie did the first thing that came to mind. She talked to it. Hey, their buddy, she said. Want to hear a joke? The machine paused. Its programming clearly did not account for this behavior. What is a robot favorite type of music? Katie continued. Heavy metal. Machine tilted its head, confused. In that moment of hesitation, a Marine shot it. Nice distraction, the Marine said. Katie laughed nervously. Humor is a weapon, apparently. 2 minutes, Nicole shouted. Everyone to the Dragon. The team began retreating. Marines covered each other. The children pods were loaded onto Starweaver. Back Lyra and Prince Kale were the last to pull back. They fought side by side, their blades flashing, but Lyra stumbled. She was too weak. A swarm unit lunged at her exposed side. Prince Kale threw himself in front of her. He took the hit. His armor held, but the impact threw him backward. Kale, Lyra screamed. She killed the machine with a fury that seemed impossible for someone so injured. She dragged the prince to his feet. They ran together. Katie helped pull them onto Starweaver own. Mint, Nicole yelled. She slammed the final control. The reactor began humming with dangerous energy. Everyone was on the Dragon. Nosterweaver spread its wings. Golisa Bennett commanded. The Dragon launched into the air behind them. The bunker glowed brighter and brighter. The swarm machines converged on its sensing. Something wrong, but unable to stop. 30 seconds, Nicole counted down. Starweaver flew through the cave tunnel. The ceiling scraped against the Dragon. Backed 20 seconds. They burst out into the open waste. Starweaver climbed higher. 10 seconds. Katie held on tight. She could see the swarm army below. Thousands of machines all about to be wiped out. 5 or 3 to 1. The explosion was silent at first. Then a wave of blue energy erupted from the ground, expanded outward in a perfect sphere. When it touched the swarm machines, they simply stopped, frozen in place. Then they fell, all of them, thousands of metal bodies collapsing like puppets with cut strings. The EMP had worked. Its Starweaver was caught at the edge of the blast wave. The Dragon wings faltered. They started falling. No, Kati shouted. Prince Kale reached out with his mind. He connected with Katie. She felt his psychic presence, strange and powerful. Trust me, he said directly into her thoughts. Katie did not understand, but she opened her mind. The prince connected her to Lyra. Then too, Starweaversedly, Katie could feel the Dragon, its penance, exhaustion, but also its determination together. Lyra's voice echoed. All of us together. Katie did not know what to do. She just focused on one thought. Flay, keep flying. The Dragon wings steadied. Prince Kale and Lyra added their strength. 3 minds working as one, supporting the Dragon, guiding its. Weaver glided more than flew, but it was enough. They cleared the waste. They made it to safe ground. The Dragon landed hard. Everyone tumbled off. Katie lay on real grass for the first time in hours. Laughed. They had done it. They had saved the children, destroyed the swarm, and survived. Lisa Bennett checked her team. Everyone accounted for. She reported, "Doll children are stable. Mission success, Prince." Kale helped Lyra sit up. She looked at him with eyes full of love. "We are alive," she said with wonder. Against all odds, the prince actually smiled. It was small, but it was real because of hope, he said, looking at Katie. Because someone refused to let us give up. Katie grinned. Also, because I tell really bad jokes, that helps. Too. Even Lyra laughed at that. Starweaver made a sound, something between a roar and a pits. Scales were brighter, now blue and silver, shining in the sunlight. The dragon was healing, they all were. News of the rescue spread across the galaxy within hours. The Vel people, who had been slowly dying of despair, suddenly had hope. 12 children had survived, the lost princess had returned, and most incredibly, a human janitor had made it all possible. Galactic Council called an emergency session. They wanted to understand how a relief worker with a mop had accomplished what trained diplomats could not. Katie found herself standing before alien leaders from 100 worlds. She felt small in the massive chamber, but she remembered facing down swarm machines. Politicians were less scary than killer robots. How did you know? The lead counselor asked. How did you know? Princess Lyra was alive when all our experts said it was impossible. Katie shrugged. I did not know, she admitted. I just thought it was worth checking, because where I come from, we do not give up on people just because saving them is hard. Another counselor spoke. You risked your life for aliens you barely knew. Why? Katie thought about that. Back home, I cleaned motel rooms. She said every day was the same. I came to space looking for adventure, but what I found was people who needed help. And once you see that you cannot just walk away, at least I cannot. The chamber was quiet. Then one counselor started clapping, then another. Soon the entire assembly was applauding. Humans showing us the meaning of courage, one counselor said. Perhaps we have much to learn from Eartha. The council voted unanimously. Humanity would be granted full membership in the Galactic Alliance. Earth would have a voice among the stars. Katie could barely believe it. She had just wanted to help one sad princess. She had changed everything. The celebration on the Celestial Spire lasted 3 days. The Vel people transformed the palace. They repaired the broken towers, replanted the gardens, lit the crystal spires with colors that had been dark for years. Prince Kale and Princess Lyra oversaw the restoration. They worked alongside their people, no longer distant rulers, but leaders who understood loss and hope in equal measure. The 12 rescued children woke from stasis. They were scared at first, confused about where they were. Lyra was there. She held each one and promised they were safe. Katie watched the reunions and cried happy tears. The third day, there was a formal ceremony. Katie wore a dress that Nicole had helped her pick out. It was simple but elegant, blue like Starweaver scales. The entire Vel court gathered in the grand hall. Humans from the relief station stood among aliens. United. Prince Kale stepped forward, wearing ceremonial robes. Beside him stood Lirushi. Looked healthy again. Proper rest and medical care had healed her. Katie Milur, the prince said, you came to our world as a custodian, but you became something far greater. You reminded us that hope is not foolish, that caring is not weakness, that even in the darkest times laughter has power. He held up a pendant. It was made of crystal and silver, shaped like a star. This is the Star of Velth, the highest honor our people can give it. Has been awarded only 12 times in our history. 2 warriors who changed the course of civilizations. Katie stepped forward. The prince placed the pendant around her neck. Crystal glowed when it touched her skin, warm and alive. Thank you, Katie said, but I did not do this alone. Lisa Bennett and her Marines risked their lives. Nickel Green figured out the technical stuff. Megan Foster believed in the mission. And Yushi looked at Prince Kaliu. We're the one who decided to hope again. That took more courage than anything I did. The prince smiled, that genuine full smile that Katie had been trying to earn since she first arrived. Then he did something unexpected. He told a joke. Why did the Vel cross the galaxy? Everyone waited to get to the other side. The hall erupted in laughter, not because it was funny, but because hearing their prince joke was a miracle. Lyra laughed the hardest. She stepped forward and hugged Katie. You are a strange little human, she said, but you have the heart of a warrior. Keep making people laugh. It as a gift. The ceremony ended with a feast. Katie sat between Nicole and Lisa. They drank something that tasted like starlight. Amanda from security was there too. She raised her glass to Katie, the woman who weaponized bad puns. Raywan cheered Katie. Grinned I had more where those came from. Want to hear about the astronaut who stepped on gum, please? No, Lisa groaned, but she was smiling later. Katie found herself in the courtyard with Starworth Dragon was magnificent, now fully healed with scales that shimmered like captured stars. New colors had appeared and the patterned gold streaks ran through the blue and silver. Katie reached up and touched the dragon nose. Stirwever rumbled contentedly according to legend. Prince Kale said, walking up behind her, when a star dragon displays gold, it means they have found joy. Again, joy they thought was lost forever. He stood beside Katie, looking at his bonded companion. You did that, he said. You gave us back our joy. Katie felt embarrassed. Just told some jokes. The prince shook his head. You did far more. You showed us that healing is possible, that bonds can be mended, that hope is worth fighting for. Pause of the Celestial Spire has a new position opening. Diplomatic humor. Officer, we need someone to remind us not to take ourselves too seriously, someone to bridge cultures with laughter. Would you be interested? Katie stared at him. You are offering me a job. The prince nodded. A important job, helping different species understand each other, making sure we never forget how to smile even in hard times. Katie thought about Montana, about motel rooms and boring routines. Then she thought about the stars, about dragons and princes and adventures beyond imagination. When do I start? She asked. The prince laughed. Tomorrow, but tonight we celebrate. The party continued late into the evening. At one point, Katie found herself telling jokes to a group of Vel children. They giggled at her terrible punt. Then, the ones they did not fully understand, laughter was universal. Later she stepped out onto a balcony. The stars were incredible from here, bright and close. Nicole joined her, thinking about Earth. Nicole asked, Ty, little Katie admitted, but I belong here now, among the stars with dragon riders and warriors telling bad jokes and saving the galaxy. Nicole laughed. That should be your official title. Caddy Miller, teller of bad jokes, saver of galaxies. Caddy liked the sound of that. They stood together watching the stars. Tomorrow, Caddy would start her new role. She would help build bridges between species. She would make sure that humor and hope remained part of galactic culture. But tonight she just enjoyed the moment. From somewhere in the palace, she heard Prince Calais laugh, really laugh. The sound of it made Katie smile. She had come to the stars looking for adventure. What she found was purpose and family, and the knowledge that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could change entire worlds. A message alert chimed on her communicator. Katie checked. IT was from Prince Callier. Presence is requested. Tomorrow morning, we are forming the new diplomatic corps. Also, Starweaver refuses to eat unless you tell him your knock-knock jokes first. He has become spoiled. Katie laughed and sent back a reply. Tell him I have a great one about a dragon who walks into a bar. She looked up at the stars one more time, then headed back to the party. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adventures. Terrible jokes, but tonight was for celebrating, for being alive, for being exactly where she was meant to be. And as Katie walked back into the light and warmth of the palace, she heard music starting. Vel and humans dancing together, different species, different worlds, united by hope, by courage, by the understanding that even in darkness laughter could light the way. The war was over, a new age had begun, and it all started with one human, one dragon, one grieving prince, and the worst jokes the galaxy had ever heard. Katie Miller grinned. She could work with that. The end was really just the beginning.